Welcome to Watch Me Go Broke. Today I have a head-to-head battle of epic proportions between the San Martin 62 Mas homage and the Bulova Oceanographer. But before I get to that, I have a bone to pick with some of you out there. Are you one of those guys that always comments on various social media posts that divers should not be on a leather strap? Are you one of those guys? Well, let me ask you a question. Are you always going to jump into a lake or an ocean in any given moment? Probably not. And if you somehow find yourself underwater with a leather strap on your diver, you've got a few bigger problems than just the strap that's on the watch. So stop the nasty posts about divers with leather straps. Nobody cares. If it's your opinion, you don't like it, great, fine, but let others have their fun. Putting a leather strap on any watch should be a cool experience, and honestly, any strap works with any watch. You just have to be prepared for the day. So I urge you to heed my advice, please. It's an age-old argument. Divers can have leather straps, you just don't go into the water. But enough of this rant, let's get to the head-to-head. All right, guys, on my wrist today is gonna be the Laurier Hydra. I really like this watch. Again, I think I probably should have gotten it in black, but it is just a gorgeous watch, 39 millimeters, right just about at the sweet spot of diver watches. And because what I'm doing today is a head-to-head of retro re-release divers, I felt the Laurier Hydra was appropriate. So I'm calling this the battle of the re-released retro divers. And you're going to say, well, the San Martin, that's not re-released. They just copied it. Well, yes, that's true. So you're going to have to give me a little leeway on that. San Martin didn't originally release the 62 Mas. It was Seiko. Seiko did re-release the 62 Mas, but it costs, I think, $4,000 or something, which makes no sense at all. You know, you're in Grand Seiko territory at that point. So San Martin, I think, saw an opportunity to release that particular watch into the market. So you're going to have to just humor me a little bit on the head-to-head. Now, there are 10 categories today. Some categories you probably haven't seen before and others that you have. Now, there were 3 that I did have to throw out because I felt like they should be thrown out just to make it a little more of a level playing field. The first one is the crystal. San Martin does offer this particular watch in a sapphire crystal. This version is not. This is the mineral crystal version, and of course, this Bulova is sapphire, so I'm really going to throw out the crystal today because it's just not a fair fight in that regard. I'm also disregarding the fact that the Bulova Oceanographer is an ISO certified dive watch. That will not factor into this particular head-to-head today. And I'm also throwing out branding because, frankly, that isn't fair at all. Bulova is a much more established brand. A lot more prestige comes along with that than San Martin, which pretty much just copies everybody else's designs. Not to say that it's not quality, but yeah, certainly no comparison between the two. So with those things thrown out, I added a unique category called NATO Strap Performance. I will put both of these watches on the same NATO strap. The NATO strap that I consider to be the best NATO strap in the world. And if you follow this channel, I have a feeling you probably know what I'm talking about. But I will put both of these on the strap simultaneously. I have 2 of those straps today, so you'll be able to see these watches side-by-side performance with that strap. So let's get on to the first category, the case. So this sound that you hear in the background is my air conditioner humming because it is a hot day here where I am, so you're just going to have to kind of ignore that if you can hear it. Not sure if you can. But this San Martin, the case is going to be 40 millimeters. It's upped from the original version that Seiko released back in the 60s. I believe that was 37 millimeters, so you gained a few millimeters there. Drilled lug holes, always nice when you're changing straps. It is a mixture of brushed and polished sides. No screw-down crown. Screw-down case back with that really cool-looking diver's helmet. I think this case back, or the case in general, It's pretty good. I'm going to give it a 7. And the case on the Bulova Oceanographer. Mostly polished. There is very little brushing anywhere. There's a little bit of brushing underneath the bezel. The polishing is very, very high quality. It's something that you would expect, certainly from a brand of this prestige. Signed crown, which is neat with the Bulova logo there. All in all, screw down case back again. Not a whole lot to look at as far as the case back goes. The case has a unique cushion style case with short lug to lugs. So I don't know. When I saw this in the store, I thought it might be a little too blingy for me, but when you're wearing it at home, it really just pops. It looks great. So I give the Bulova an 8. So next category is going to be the bracelet, and we are starting with the Bulova here today. Now this bracelet was done in an homage style to an original 70s diver bracelet. It is friction pins. I've heard online that people absolutely hate this bracelet. I love it. I think it is so awesome. I think it looks great. It's extremely comfortable. The clasp is a pressed metal clasp, pops down secure, fold over, double pushers, 3 micro adjustments, and there is a diver's extension in it as well. That's always a plus. The finishing on the bracelet is really quite nice. Polishing, it's a 3-link, polishing on the 2 outer links with brushing in the middle links. Just the flexibility of this, and it does flex quite a bit. It is a jingly kind of bracelet, but it just works so well with the retro style of this watch, and it makes it so comfortable. The wearability of this is super good. Friction pins, if I forgot to mention that, so I'm gonna go with a 7. So the San Martin bracelet today is a mixture of brushed and polished. Brushed on the sides and the center links, but there is a slight polishing on the top of the center link there. This is a pin and collar bracelet, and I won't hold that against it today because I purchased this pre-owned, and luckily the seller had the same size wrist as me, so no problem there. It is 3-link. It is very solid. There is virtually no movement there. I wouldn't say that it's overly comfortable wearing it, but it is certainly not bad. It is very high quality. The clasp is just about the best clasp you can get on any watch. So that is a great bonus. 6 micro adjustments. So you are going to find the perfect fit every time. Milled clasp, fold over, double pushers. Just great. Good looking bracelet, 316L stainless steel. I've got to give this one to the San Martin with an 8. So the next category is wearability, and this is just basically the comfort on the wrist, how it looks, how it wears, the functionality of it. Lug to lug on the San Martin is a little bit longer than the Bulova. It is 48 millimeters, so that's going to be pretty much right at the end of my wrist. The wearability on this, it sits well on the wrist. It doesn't overhang too much. There is a little bit of a protruding end link on the San Martin, and so that is going to make it wear a bit big. But all in all, I think this watch wears very nice, and I'm going to give it an 8. And the wearability on the Bulova Oceanographer, 46 millimeter lug to lug, so that sits pretty much in the sweet spot of my wrist. Cushion case, hugs the wrist very nicely, again with the amazingly comfortable bracelet. This is honestly one of the most comfortable watches that I have in my collection. I think it's just fantastic. It is incredibly hard to beat, and so for that reason, the wearability of the Bulova is 10. Next category is going to be versatility, and we'll start with a Bulova. Versatility, what I mean by that is what you're going to be able to do and where you're going to be able to wear this watch in certain situations. Now, in my opinion, the Bulova comes up a little bit short in this regard, and I think it's because of the color. It is rather bright. It's loud. I don't know if it's something you would really wear in a business setting, as I've mentioned in other reviews. And of course, it is also quite blingy. It's quite highly polished, It does attract attention, and I mentioned, if you go diving with this, it's probably going to attract every shark in the area. Yeah, so you're not looking at a whole lot of blend-in ability in a lot of social situations. This is a watch that you're going to wear if you want to be noticed for certain. So versatility on the Bulova, it's a 6. Versatility on the San Martin is certainly a little bit better, I would say. It's your classic diver, 40 millimeter size, so right at the average size, watch size. The gray dial, I think, just exudes class without being too blingy there. I think you could probably put this on a leather strap. Oh, forgive me, blasphemy. You could probably put it on a leather strap and work it into a business situation. It's not overly big. It's not overly loud. I'm going to give this one an 8. Sticking with the San Martin, we are going to be looking at the dial for this next category. I love the dial on the San Martin. That is a gray sunburst dial. I think it looks great. The applied indices are all polished around all the sides of them. The 3 hands are really attractive, well done. The only thing about it is the lume does appear to be slightly a different shade on the hands than on the indices of the dial. Frame date window looks really great. San Martin logo, very simple there. It's a good looking dial, and it is something that is hard to beat, so I'm going to give it a 9. Well, the dial on the Bulova is a one of a kind, without a doubt. That 70s green color, it isn't sunburst. It's more of just like a matte style dial finish. It is just gorgeous looking. The applied indices, something I've never seen on any other watch, set in there like little tiny diamonds. The hands look great. Lollipop seconds hand, lollipops. My big pet peeve, but I did excuse this one just because of the design. The Bulova, you can't really kind of see it. The logo there, applied logo, I think it just looks fantastic. This dial is really unbeatable. I don't even know any other watch whose dial is really this good. So this is a solid 10. Next category is going to be Lume. Both looms on these divers are absolutely fantastic. Not sure what kind of formula they are both using, but the San Martin shines like the surface of the sun. Even when I'm in full bright sunlight, I can still see that lume glowing. There are just heaps and heaps and mounds of lume on that. The Bulova also holds its own very well, very, very well. The lume on that is also absolutely outstanding, but I think if you're looking at the two right now, I think the clear winner is the San Martin, and I've got to give that a 10. I have not found any other watch that has better lume than this particular watch, so it gets a 10. And the Bulova gets an 8 because it is also very, very outstanding and unique looking. So the next category is the movement, and in the Bulova Oceanographer, it does have a Miyota 8200 series movement. It does not hack, it does hand wind. It's a reliable movement, but it is cheap. I mean, it's one of the cheaper movements that you can come across. It's in a lot of homage watches, like I know Courget or Corgo or however you pronounce it. They use them in their Tudor Black Bay homage, and also this movement or a version of it is also featured in the Citizen ProMaster. So it does have a little bit of prestige there, but it is your off the rack movement. It doesn't hack. At least it does hand wind. The accuracy I found is pretty decent. So, all in all, I think the ability to not hack hurts this a little bit. So I'm going to give the Bulova movement an 8. It is reliable, and I have this movement in several watches, and I have not had any issues. So the movement in the San Martin here is no surprise. It is an unbranded Seiko NH35A movement, pretty much the movement that most micro brands use, and for good reason. They are very reliable. They can be tuned to very fine accuracy. Really reliable, hacks, hand winds, 21,600 vibrations per hour. It's a solid movement. Need I go on? This movement in the San Martin gets a 9. Sticking with the San Martin, the next category is the bezel. So the bezel on the San Martin, and this is going to include the insert and also the action of it. It is a ceramic insert, so good there, no problem. And turning it, it is extremely hard, and I don't know if this is just the version I got, but it is tough. It is tough to grip. I'm doing it with gloves, so it's probably a little bit harder than it would be if I was not doing that. It is, I believe, 120 click unidirectional bezel. It's hard to turn. It's hard to grip. There's not a whole lot to grip on. The knurling around the bezel is, it looks like it's sharp and grippy, but it's not. It's a little deceiving. I think it's more meant for a visual effect than a functionality. And the clicking of the bezel is actually very plasticky feeling. It feels a little cheap and again hard to turn. Lume pip, no problems there. I like recessed lume pip, so good points there it gets. But the action on it, it could be much better. Let me line it up here. It could be much better. Hard to grip, kind of tough. In the water, I have no idea how you would do this. So the bezel on this San Martin gets a 6. On to the Bulova, the also 120 click unidirectional bezel. There is 0 back play in this thing. Gripping it, very easy. Beautiful coin edge there. It grips really nice. This is, you know, the action on this, it's great. I really enjoy it. Virtually no back play. Lines up pretty good. It was kind of hard for me to find some information on this, but I believe the bezel insert on this is sapphire, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, good there. I don't know if I prefer sapphire over ceramic, but it just gives this wonderful little distortion, and it just adds to the 70s retro look. Lume pip, I like it. It's not really there. It's just sort of a printed lume pip, but it does shine nice and bright. I love the bezel on this Bulova. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it's going to get a 9. So 2 more categories left today. This category is going to be value. Value for money is very important when you're purchasing a watch. This San Martin is going to be about $240 new with the sapphire crystal. And the Bulova is actually quite higher. I think you can probably get this in the $360 range. $360 to $400 I think is probably a comfortable number at this point. Other color versions of it are a little bit cheaper. I saw the black dial version with the red Coke bezel was going for $200 and I believe $60 at some point. So you could probably find these, but the price points are drastically different. So with the San Martin, you're getting an NH35 movement, ceramic bezel, sapphire crystal, 200 meters of water resistance, great bracelet. All in all, value for money on the San Martin. Really, you know, it's tough to beat. It's a good looking watch. So value for money is definitely going to be a 9 on the San Martin. And the Bulova, what can I say? I think you're paying a little bit of a coolness factor premium when you're getting this watch. The price tag really doesn't justify what you're getting here. You know, you pretty much run-of-the-mill movement. It does have sapphire crystal. It is 200 meters of water resistance. You may be paying a little bit more for the ISO certification, which I said I would not mention and throw out. But so value for money. This is more of a sentimental, I don't want to say fashion piece, because I think it's very functional, and it's just a beautiful looking watch. But I think if you compare the two, in value for money, what you're getting with this Bulova really doesn't justify the price. So I'm going to give it a 5. And so the final category today is NATO strap performance, something you really don't see in other head-to-head reviews, to my knowledge. I have both of these watches on, for my money, the best NATO strap in the world. This is an Omega NATO strap. They are just the best. I've had both of these for probably 2 years now, and I mean, the performance is just wonderful. Look at this. No fraying whatsoever. No fraying. I mean, I don't wear them like every day, but I do wear them quite often. It is my favorite NATO. No fraying on the holes whatsoever. No fraying really anywhere. Hardware is great. Outstanding. So I wanted to put the best NATO strap in the world on these two watches to get this comparison. Now, right out of the gate, both of these watches pretty much fail in the ease of putting on the NATO strap. You cannot slide the NATO strap through the lugs. The spring bars on both of these watches are way too close to the case, way too close. You can't slide a NATO through it at all. You have got to actually secure the NATO using the spring bars, so that is completely awkward and irritating and challenging. And then if you don't have it lined up correctly, you got to pop it back out and go back in. Yeah, so extremely irritating. I don't know why anybody ever really does spring bars close to the case. But yeah, both of these watches fail in that category right out of the gate. Starting with the Bulova, I'm actually pretty impressed with the way it wears on a NATO. I don't know if it's the cushion case, but it seems like the NATO kind of, you know, hugs down the wrist a little bit better with this particular style case than I've seen on some other watches. I think it, you know, that really looks good. I would think that you would need to use a relatively thin NATO. Obviously, if you're not going to use an Omega NATO, you'd need to use one that's pretty thin. And of course, maybe a single pass NATO would work a bit better with this. But on the NATO strap, I think it looks really, really cool. I think that works really, really well. And really the only drawback is having to set the spring bars in place while you're putting the NATO on. That's a little bit irritating, but NATO performance with this one, I think it's probably a solid 8. I think it looks really great. You know, I think maybe color-wise, you'd have to be careful which color NATO you chose, but I think this color NATO works wonderful with the watch. And so there is the San Martin. I don't really think this watch works that well on NATOs, as I'm trying to demonstrate here. The lugs, I don't know. It just, the NATO coming out of the lug doesn't really look very pleasing to the eye, and it kind of sits on your wrist, if I can show it, like kind of like a frisbee. Like it just sort of sits up there with the, you know, the double pass NATO. So NATO strap, it just doesn't really look right, in my opinion. I don't know. I think this watch is definitely suited more to rubber straps than it is to NATOs. I think single pass NATO on this particular watch is the way to go. It's probably not translating on this video, but it just wears awkwardly on a NATO. I don't know. This is the best NATO strap in the world, so this is as good as this is going to look. But if you can see, like, it just sort of, I don't know, the NATO sort of protrudes out, and then you can see the watch is just sort of, it's not hugging your wrist, it's sitting above, which happens with, this particular style of NATO, but it just sort of like frisbees out. Like it just doesn't sit right at all. And I've tried several different NATOs on this particular watch, and it's pretty much the same result. This one is the best, but single pass only, I think, on the San Martin if you're going to go with NATO. So this being like a traditional, military-ish, diver style from the 60s, they should work on pretty much any sort of strap. And this one, unfortunately, and this is just my opinion, does not. So I'm going to have to go with a 5 on this San Martin. I think they could have done better. And part of it is definitely the lugs being too close to the case. So, and now the final results. Coming in at 79 points is the San Martin. And drum roll on the Bulova, coming in at 79 points. Yes, it was a tie. Please do not be mad at me. This was not intentional. I really tried to evaluate these watches as honestly as possible throughout categories that I felt were unfair. And they actually tied. So it's going to be, I guess, a matter of your personal preference. If you like the way the San Martin looks on the NATO, then you could go with that one. If you, like the ISO certification on the Bulova, you could go with that one. And of course, brand prestige. But, it just depends on how much you're willing to spend on a watch that both of these you will really, really enjoy. They are both fantastic watches. Obviously, there's an argument there that this is not San Martin's original design. So, if that bothers you, you may want to go this direction. But I felt like this head-to-head was something that needed to happen because I don't think anybody's gone head-to-head with these two watches before. So it was just something that I found fun. I hope you guys did too. So thank you for tuning in. I'm looking forward to doing more head-to-heads in the future. And by the way, guys, Leather on Diver, thumbs up for me.